Entergy is proud to support programming on LPB and greener practices that preserve Louisiana.
The goal of our environmental and sustainability initiatives really is to ensure that our kids and future generations can be left with a cleaner planet.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
They know who's doing their cooking. They know your name.
The secret recipe that keeps a popular restaurant open even during the pandemic.
I call it the epicenter of hope.
The Facebook group created to help COVID-19 survivors who are still recovering months later.
It might be the wave of the future.
The Salvation Army's big changes so they can keep on serving.
Everyone felt the excitement of seeing the first tomato ripen.
Why the COVID gardening boom is really about more than food.
Hey everyone, I'm Andre Morrow. My partner Natasha Williams is off tonight. We'll have much more on those top stories in a moment on this week's edition of SWI. But first, another twist in a year of unnerving health catastrophes. President Donald Trump and his wife Melania testing positive for COVID-19. The White House says both have mild symptoms and are in self-isolation. We're also checking Louisiana's latest coronavirus numbers, which tally almost 900 new cases and 536 in hospital care. Governor John Bel Edwards announcing some bars meeting Department of Health Phase 3 guidelines can now reopen.
More parishes are obviously qualifying to opt in for bars opening under the restrictions that we have in place, and the vast majority are in fact electing to opt in. So I just want to spend just a minute on what those restrictions are. First of all, only parishes with 2 consecutive one-week periods of 5.0% or less in positivity, as identified on LDH's website, can opt in to allowing bars to resume on-site consumption with those mitigation measures and restrictions in place. Also want to remind the owners to review what their operations need to look like under the order, including table service only. Customers have to remain seated. No service at the bar counter, and the 11 p.m. closing time. In addition, no one under 21 can be in the bar as a patron.
And now we'll look at other headlines making news across our state. This week, the state saw some big business investments. CF Industries says it'll make a $41 million capital investment at the world's largest nitrogen fertilizer plant in Donaldsonville. The project will retain almost 500 high-paying jobs with annual salaries averaging $100,000. Louisiana also announced a partnership with Haas Automation and community and technical colleges that makes us America's first state to install a certain type of advanced machining center. The machining advancement enables the automated production of certain parts at the same time. BP settlement money is in the news. The state will get nearly $215 million in BP oil spill dollars for 2 major projects to restore more than 4,600 acres of marsh and other habitat near New Orleans. Work on the projects at Lake Bourne and Spanish Pass should begin next year. Even with the coronavirus pandemic, LSU's enrollment set an all-time high for the fall semester with more than 34,000 students. That's on the Baton Rouge campus. The size of the freshman class also broke records for a 3rd straight year. With a mandated reduced crowd of only 21,000 in Tiger Stadium, LSU fell flat in a stunning season-opening loss to Mississippi State. State lit up LSU's secondary for an SEC record 630 yards. The 44-34 loss was the Tigers' first since 2018, and that included last year's perfect dominant run to the national championship. Up next, on the road at Vanderbilt. The governor also this week asking people to keep former Governor Mike Foster in their prayers. Family friends report the 90-year-old Foster is in hospice care in Franklin. Foster was governor of Louisiana from 1996 to 2004. More than half a year into the coronavirus pandemic, and lawmakers are arguing over how the state should respond to it. That's the headline and major reason why a second special session is happening now at the state capitol. Senators advancing this week legislation that would rein in the governor's authority over public health emergencies. Survivor Corps is a grassroots Facebook movement started by a woman who experienced a number of frustrations after she tested positive for COVID. The group is dedicated to sharing information and research about the virus. She told our Natasha Williams that she simply had to speak out.
Diana Barrett, a professional photographer, is 45 years old, healthy, active, and very adventurous. But back in March, her life as she knew it hit a major road bump.
I was actually one of the first people in the New York area to get COVID back in early March. And I recovered at home with Tylenol and Gatorade. I was not hospitalized. I did not have a dramatic story out of it. I was just early. And thankfully, I was extremely lucky. While I was in isolation, I started to learn about convalescent plasma. And I realized that if I was, going to be unlucky enough to be one of the first people to get COVID, if I was going to be lucky enough to be one of the first survivors, there were going to be many to follow. I was thinking thousands. I didn't realize that there would be millions. And that if one person could save lives through donating plasma, imagine if we could gather all of these people in a sort of coalition.
Her Facebook group Survivor Corps, now more than 107,000 strong, was born. The online group is dedicated to sharing information and research about the coronavirus pandemic.
So I started Survivor Corps on March 24th with really the same mission that we have today, which is to mobilize an army of survivors to donate their plasma and support science in every way possible. Inside the arm of every COVID-19 survivor are the antibodies that will lead us to a cure. And it is, I think, our civic duty, our moral duty to give back to science, to support science, because so many of the answers to the mysteries of this virus lie in the bodies of survivors.
Barrett says Survivor Corps is now a patient advocacy group as well,
because so many of the people who get COVID don't end up in the hospital, but they also don't recover. People are staying ill for months and suffering damage to every organ system because of this virus.
Tell me about how important it is, to kind of get it out there that these are long-term, as you guys call it, long-haul symptoms, and people have them and people are still suffering.
Yeah, so that is extraordinarily important to realize. And it's one of the reasons why I think it's so important to do interviews like this and to get this message across, is because, look, if you had COVID and it's been more than 2-3 weeks, if you're on week 4, week 5, week 6, and things are not feeling like they're supposed to, and you don't feel like you're getting better, you need medical help. And if you go to the doctor and the doctor, says you have anxiety, well, you probably do. And you might be depressed also, but that doesn't mean that you might not also have heart damage or lung damage or kidney damage or severe neurological impairments as a result of this virus.
She says the Centers for Disease Control lists 12 symptoms associated with COVID, but through its membership, Survivor Corps has identified 98. She says COVID survivors must advocate for themselves and seek a second opinion if necessary.
This is not in your head. This virus is, now that, we understand that it's vascular, not respiratory, it is really wreaking havoc on every single organ system. And come join us at Survivor Corps, do a keyword search on that symptom, and I assure you, you will find many, many other people who have experienced the same thing. And right now we are in a very unusual situation where most people who get COVID don't go to the doctor.
For months, Barron has done her part in helping those suffering, struggling, and praying to get better. She's given plasma 8 times, the most she's allowed.
First of all, it is literally the only good thing that comes out of COVID is that you get to be a superhero. Your body did exactly what it was supposed to do when you got COVID. It encountered a novel virus and it created antibodies to fight it off. So you have this internal hazmat suit once you've had COVID. We don't know how long it's going to last, but the ideal time to donate plasma is 21 to 28 days right after you got sick. Don't wait too long, because that's when you have the most number of antibodies, and you can actually share that hazmat suit. You can share that immunity. You can share that superpower with other people, and it doesn't reduce your own immunity.
And she says in the weeks and months ahead, as researchers try to develop a vaccine for the virus, Survivor Corps will be there for those who need help on the long, long road to recovery.
So while you would normally advise people never, ever get medical advice on the internet, that's the worst idea possible. These are not actually normal times. And while we do not actually allow members to give medical advice to one another, they are allowed to share their own anecdotal information. And by sharing symptoms, you can identify your own.
Several hundred people across the state have joined the Survivor Corps Facebook group. In fact, a woman we interviewed last week credits the group with saving her life. You may have already noticed major changes the Salvation Army and Feeding Louisiana are making, I'm told, in order to meet their needs of community service. I talked with Mike Manning, who heads up the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, and the Salvation Army's Major Donald Tekautz.
We are just facing unprecedented time. So the Salvation Army's adapted our new slogan for this Christmas called Rescue Christmas. For us to be able to raise the funds we need for the Salvation Army year-round, and then to be able to help people in our community, we are so looking at the obstacles that we have in our way of where we're going to be able to ring bells, how we can help people and not be in mass groups of people. We're just kind of juggling a lot of things right now. So Rescue Christmas is a great slogan of having a way for people to come to our rescue and to the people we serve's rescue to serve year-round that the Salvation Army does. You know, we're not far. Our neighbors on either side of us have faced a major hurricane on both sides. We're good friends with the officers who serve in Lake Charles. You know, their town is devastated a lot. And we've had some of our teams there helping to serve. Our emergency disaster canteen has been there to serve. So of course, those are right in our neighborhood being in Louisiana. And so you also kind of worry about donor fatigue, you know, because there's been such a huge need to help the people of Lake Charles as we move to Christmas. There's lots of things that, as you said, we juggle to kind of be prepared to keep moving forward as serving. So being we don't know if we can ring bells in some stores, and, you know, we're also facing this coin shortage in America. And so people's ability to give this year and where we can ring bells, there's still a few of our national locations that we've not yet heard of, and that's getting a little scary of where we can ring bells this Christmas season. So we've adopted an online Red Kettle program that people can check out at our website, salvationarmybr.org, and can do several things. One, if you're so desire, you can set up and have your very own online Red Kettle and encourage your friends to give. It's easy to sign up. We'll send you if you sign up a little form, we'll send you the link that you can broadcast it all across your social media or email to all of your friends, and you can become an online bell ringer for us and help us still to meet the need. I've challenged my advisory board to each of them have an online Red Kettle, and they're going to come to our rescue. The other new is our Angel Tree program that we've done for years and years of helping families, especially children at Christmas, get a toy. We can't do applications like we used to when people would come in groups of people. And so we're completely going to an online Angel Tree program this year where families who need help will be able to sign up online, and we'll be able to then come and we'll do kind of a drive-through this year where people won't get out of their car, and we'll be ready for them on those weeks before Christmas to make sure families' needs are met with food and toys for Christmas. So there's a lot of things that COVID is kind of pushing us to look at new ways of doing the things we've always done.
We are pretty much focused on doing what we do just like we would do after any disaster. It's just that we're having to do it for a much longer period of time now, which is requiring us to raise more funds, raise more food to significantly impact things and take care of so many more people than we're used to serving on a regular basis.
And that's happening at every level, nationally, statewide, with every organization that you're associated with in the bigger picture, correct?
Exactly. In some places, it's worse than others, depending on the amount of the shutdown and the situation with cases. But generally, we're all facing the same problems, the same issues of increased demand, significantly increased demand.
If you could tell people at home watching to do one thing, what would that be?
It would be to donate, because we can translate $1 into so much more than they can just donating food. Monetary donations can go so much farther. It allows us to continue to do our distributions, to cover the overtime we're incurring, and to make sure that we are still trying to meet the need. I don't think we are meeting the need, but we're striving to, as best we can in the 11 parishes that we serve. When you take the COVID, you have to overlay Hurricane Laura. And that has dramatically changed the face of the response from where we were just with a COVID response to where we have a COVID response plus a disaster layered on top. So the entire western portion of the state is really struggling even more than we were with COVID, which is a big challenge, especially in light of all the COVID funding that's come out and been donated through the philanthropic community that is now in a situation of, well, are there funds to help with the hurricane recovery and to continue to provide the feeding in such a devastated area? For us, we've been doing the same thing since the COVID outbreak started. We've been doing mobile distributions because a lot of our agencies, because of the age of the volunteers, would close to protect those volunteers. And it's really been key across the state for us to be able to continue to do that in spite of the additional demands of the hurricane and trying to address the broader issues that we have to face from a COVID perspective.
The pandemic has forced the way small businesses operate just in order to stay open. Natasha Williams spoke with the owner of Baton Rouge's Zeeland Street Market. It's a popular Garden District destination for 30 years.
For 3 decades, Stephanie Phares has been cooking in the neighborhood she calls home.
Basically, it was a fluke. I lived on Zeeland Street. This was a convenience store. The owner wanted to sell it, and so he ended up selling it to my husband and I. Of course, it's changed and had several renovations over the years, but hopefully this is my final one. Over time, took out all the convenience store items. We had gasoline for sale outside, took that out and basically brought in more chairs and made it into a little neighborhood restaurant.
And over the years, her Garden District neighbors have flocked in for breakfast and lunch, sometimes for both in the same day.
Get to know your customer, get to know your clientele. We cook with love and use fresh ingredients. Hopefully you can't go wrong with that. Once you know who your clientele is, you're able to offer them what they want without even saying what I need today. I can see these 2 guys walk in and they automatically want that BLT.
Earlier in the year, small businesses like Phares' Family Restaurant were challenged like never before.
During this pandemic, this 2020, I think it was very necessary that you know who you're providing for. But not only that, they know you. They know who's doing their cooking. They know your name. They know who you are, and if you're here to keep them safe.
Phares knew the pandemic would mean changes, so she began preparing early.
I actually was in a Serve Safe class the day that the governor shut the restaurants down. So my kitchen manager, Miss Tanya, and I came out of that meeting knowing more about COVID than we had known earlier. We also knew already how to keep everything clean and, sanitized. So we came back ready for it, but we didn't know what was about to happen. We lost the majority of our staff. We lost some of our customers, but we knew to keep our doors open for those who wanted the choice of real food, not fast food, but real food, cooked with love by us.
She says it wasn't easy, but she did get a Small Business Administration Paycheck Protection Program grant to help pay her employees, but
we had to keep our heads up above the water, so we had to keep going. So we needed to, just greet every customer, put our name out there, keep our name out there. We needed to just keep the doors open for whoever walked in the door. So it was difficult at first, but we had faith and that it was going to come back.
And now in phase 3, still limited capacity and socially distanced, business is picking back up. But her secret recipe for success is much the same as it was when she started 30 years ago.
The restaurants that last, they're going to be the ones that know what they're doing, and they're there to offer the public what we need, not just what we want to socialize or what we think we want, but you need to keep food healthy so that it can build your immune system. And so that's what I think the future of restaurants are.
And Phares plans to be a part of that future.
Every plate helps. Every time we cook something and you eat it and it's good and you can tell someone else, that's the best advertisement.
Zeeland Street Restaurant is open for breakfast and for lunch. There has been a boom in home gardening since COVID took over our lives. You had people locked down at home and fears of food shortages emerging. I talked with a Baton Rouge woman who was among the legion of gardeners, and she says while the fresh food is great, it is about much more than that. So how did it evolve? How did you decide to do it? Long before COVID clamped down hard on the life we knew, Kathleen Pourciau of Baton Rouge had been floating the idea of planting a vegetable garden. But it took a bout with the winter blues at the same time pandemic lockdowns forced people home to bring her along to the next step in her decision-making process.
And I was laying in that bed in front of the window, and my daughter gave me a phone with all these gardens on Pinterest, and I just kind of piqued my interest in it.
Sparked something. You've never done this before?
I had always loved flowers, but in vegetables intimidated me.
Intimidation or not, it was coming time to plant. So daughter Bonnie Kate became cheerleader and closer of the deal.
We've always had this empty space on the side of our house, and Mom was like, oh, I really want to do a garden, and everyone else was kind of like, that's a huge undertaking and overwhelming to think about the planning and the layout of everything. And so I was like so excited, like, let's do this, let's go for it. And I had an iPad and helped her sketch out her ideas in her brain, and it was so much fun to dream and scheme and envision it all.
She was my partner in it. She was very helpful, incredibly helpful, and instructional, and in ways that I loved and appreciated.
Kathleen also happened to be the only one in her family covering many generations who never quite learned the skills to grow crops. Her mom says all these events came together at the right time to set the table for her daughter.
She got my brother, Wilmer Mills, to come and help her a little bit on the boxes, tell her what kind of dirt to put in. And he gave her a few pointers. I think he was very encouraging. He was positive.
As Kathleen's work began, if she needed answers, she knew where to go.
Every time I go to the nursery, I ask questions to anybody I run into.
Well, I guess when you had your children and nurtured and raised them, you didn't know that much about it, but you learned, and so you're learning this.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing.
It really is. It's nice, and people are willing to help you.
And this season's finished product? It's a flowing mix of vegetables that casually coexist with flowers and fruit trees, pathways and spaces that lead to areas to read a book in solitude, or multiple expansive tables covered in candles for dining al fresco.
It was really fun to make the most of every square foot outside, and I wanted to just facilitate people being able to enjoy each other, and without having to go and grab something and set it up and hang it up or whatever, just be able to walk outside and have places to connect.
But even all that is not Kathleen's favorite part.
Everyone felt the excitement of seeing the first tomato ripen or eating salad with our things in it. I mean, everyone felt that, and And also, they would come over and sit in the yard. We just gathered around it.
It was so nice to just be able to be outside together, eat yummy things. I mean, I think it's one of our favorite parts, not one of, it is our favorite part of the yard for sure.
And because a true gardener's work is never done, Kathleen is, of course, already planning for the next season. The Louisiana Film Prize Festival is underway in Shreveport. Films being considered began streaming online today and will continue through October 11th. Independent filmmakers are competing for a cash prize of $25,000. There's much more information about it all at lafilmprize.com. One of the state's biggest philanthropists died this week. Businessman Lod Cook, known for his major gifts to LSU, suffered a stroke 3 years ago and had been bedridden ever since. Cook was corporate vice president of Atlantic Richfield Company and named an LPB Louisiana Legend in 1995. He is most known, though, for making that initial gift to build the Lod Cook Alumni Center at LSU in 1993. Lod Cook was 92. And that's a look at our show for this week, everyone. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime, wherever you are, with our LPB app. You can catch LPB news and public affairs shows, as well as other Louisiana programs that you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For everyone here at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Morho. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Entergy is proud to support programming on LPB and greener practices that preserve Louisiana.
The goal of our environmental and sustainability initiatives really is to ensure that our kids and future generations can be left with a cleaner planet.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.